Hey, Warpugs. So we're here with Majorkill, and this was a request from Mr. Psych77. Now, the topic of today's video is one that is kind of near and dear to my heart because of the implications that it has. The little guy steps up and does some crazy stuff. One of my favorite captions, one of my favorite memes of all time, actually comes from the thumbnail of this video, where you have a drop trooper literally getting right up in the face of a Chaos Space Marine, and the caption basically encapsulates how that word bearer was feeling, saying that imagine living through the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy only to be killed by a screaming guardsman. It's the best thing ever. Probably one of the best examples, not really directly humiliated, but basically showing up the Space Marines. Wasn't a guardsman, actually. It was a PDF trooper named Pavel from the Airbus Defense Legion. When the Ultramarines were fighting some Tyranids, Pavel wound up showing up a bunch of Space Marines in Uriel Ventress's company. And the hilarity of the situation is they didn't lose their minds over it, which actually made me like the Ultramarines a little bit when I read it for the first time. But in any case, Warpugs, you can see that things have come down behind me. Tomorrow, most of the stuff is going to be moved out of this room, I believe. I don't know if I'm going to be recording before or after that, but I'm going to be in the new location soon. Warpugs, it's been a long time coming. Let's get into this. All the Majorkill's links are going to be in the description down below. Subscribe to him, subscribe to me if you haven't already. Let's get into it.
Hey guys and gal, as a general rule of thumb, one Space Marine is probably worth around 100 Guardsmen in a single engagement.
Easily.
This would obviously change depending on the situation, i.e. a full-on shootout might make a Space Marine only worth like 20 Guardsmen, whilst a Space Marine boarding team attacking a ship might make them worth 300. But regardless though, if it's 10, 100 or 1,000, the point remains, Space Marines are significantly more deadly than Guardsmen. However, there have been times in the lore where the tables have turned, and a mere unaugmented Guardsman was able to slay a Space Marine or at times multiple Space Marines, inflicting upon them a fate worse than death for any Astartes, humiliation. Some of these were quite funny, others were quite intense, but all of them were awesome. Mostly.
So if he's talking about not so much humiliation as in you know, getting beat by a regular human, talking about saving them, there's another one that comes to mind in that particular instance from Hell's Reach itself, and that was Andre, the legendary Andre. And if you don't know about Andre, you should.
Because the Space Marines that were killed by the Guardsmen had it coming. Before we get started, I actually have something pretty high tech and very dope to show you. This is a Lumen, who were kind enough to sponsor today's video, and using this device, you can use the power of the Omnisire to burn fat and gain muscle, two things that are pretty great. How it works is that by breathing into the Lumen, it will analyze your metabolic rate as well as if your body is currently burning fats or carbs as energy. This is important as if you want to go lift some weights and try gain muscle, you'll want to use carbs as your fuel source. If you aren't carbed up, it's likely your workout will feel sluggish and just won't be as optimized as you want it to be. That's not all. The Lumen will analyze your sleep, your macro requirements, and so on before telling you exactly what you need to do to optimize your health. The thing is, you don't even need to be a gym bro to get value out of this. Simply using it to optimize your food and sleep will make you feel so much better in your day-to-day. And no, it's not just some snake oil device. In a study, Lumen was compared with big-ass expensive medical equipment that does the same thing, and the data was consistent across both devices. So to kickstart or boost your quest for a healthier you, then go to lumen.me/majorkill or just click the link below and you get a smexy $50 off your Lumen. Cheers to Lumen for sponsoring this video.
Nice.
Today we'll go over various moments in
That's actually pretty cool. That's actually interesting that we have that capability now. That is insane, actually. I love that. We all know that I'm carbohydrate fueled. I drink too much caffeine.
Lore where a Guardsman has managed to slay a Space Marine, or at the very least, humiliate them. Let's get into it.
Let's roll.
Starting us off with a bittersweet example, we have the Guardsmen taking on the Night Lords on Pharos.
Ooh.
Pharos was a simple world with simple, peaceful people. However, it did contain a massive Xenos device that acted as a second mini Astronomicon. That was essential to the survival and coordination of Imperium Secundus. The story follows a group of militia who survive the initial Night Lords' onslaught and engage in guerrilla tactics against their tormentors. This militia is led by a fun but hectic hero of a dude who kicks off their Astarte kill tally by shooting a Night Lord in the eye and luring another one into the range of a high caliber sniper. From here they launch various ambushes, racking up more and more kills. I genuinely believe that their kill to death ratio against the Night Lords was pretty much 1-to-1, a mostly unheard of stat. They were able to achieve this due to the arrogance of the Night Lords alongside the Night Lords being kind of shit at open field combat, as well as the fact that they were packing some heavy weaponry, not just the las guns that ping off Space Marine armor.
And it really does help that the Night Lords at this point were being led by Jendor Shibbity Bebop or Skibbity Bebop the Bop, whatever his name was.
These brave guardsmen made a final stand against the Night Lords, blocking off one of the passages into the Pharos. They were able to ambush a large Night Lord force and genuinely kill dozens of them, until they were all either captured or killed. The few survivors, including their hero captain, were brutalized and horrifically tortured to death, but they made the Night Lords pay. The Night Lords had been the most horrific pieces of shit during the war for Pharos, so seeing them die in droves to guardsmen was very satisfying. Someone who probably doesn't believe they deserve to be on this list is the extremely humble and wildly capable Caiaphas Cain, hero of the Imperium. If you haven't read the Cain books and have only looked at memes, you may think that Cain is this incapable coward that stumbles into victory and is just super lucky, but that's not.
He is probably one. He's in the top 10 swordsmen in the Imperium. As far as mortals go, he's in the top 10.
Really the case. The man is actually a beast, extremely brave, tactically intelligent, and a master warrior. He just downplays it all due to his imposter syndrome, so it may surprise you to hear that he is bested in multiple Space Marines. The first Space Marine was during a friendly sparring match between Cain and an Astartes from the Loyalist Reclaimer chapter. They agreed to fight till first blood. Now the Astartes was holding back as he underestimated Cain, but he still didn't want Cain to beat him. However, after a short duel, Cain was able to strike the Space Marine's chest plate, leaving a cut across it. The Space Marine was wildly impressed and vowed to never repair the scratch as a lesson learned to never underestimate an opponent. However, in a more real situation, Cain was face to face with a Cornite Berserker. Not where you'd want to be, but Cain made it all seem like a joke. He parried the Space Marine's first strike before just straight up outclassing him, cutting him across the chest, parrying the warrior's axe to deflect it into its own leg and then taunting it the entire time.
He actually called it a pansy.
Calling the warrior a pansy. Then when the time was right, Cain stepped back and Jurgen blew out the berserker's chest with a melter gun. Cain thanked his aid before asking for a cup of tea. Now this does sound quite over the top and Mary Sue-like, however Cain himself remarked that he didn't think it would last long and was basically putting all his effort in at the start and taunting to try and make the Space Marine make a mistake. But how it actually reads was that Cain would have probably ended up killing the dude in the 1v1. Amberly Vale, an Inquisitor / Cain's fuck buddy, once remarked that Cain was by far the greatest swordsman she had ever met in her entire life. A combination of extreme talent, thorough training, as well as a lot of humility. Cain didn't do the over-the-top flourishing risky strikes as he didn't think he was actually that particularly good, so he played it safe and controlled, never underestimating his enemy. Another commissar who racked up their fair share of Space Marine kills is Ibram Gaunt.
Now, something else about Cain. Cain's imposter syndrome was one thing. He also believed himself to be a coward. He was not a coward. And the one Berserker of Khorne wasn't the only one that he killed. He killed 2. Utterly ridiculous. The stories from stories about Caiaphas Cain are utterly ridiculous.
Alongside his Gaunt's ghosts. In one such scene, a 5-man team of Chaos Space Marines ambushed Gaunt and his men. Not only did Gaunt and his men win, but all 5 Chaos Space Marines die with 0 casualties on the Imperial Guard side. That is wild.
That is unheard of.
Dueled a Space Marine with his power sword, with the Astartes struggling to come to terms with Gaunt just being a simple man, not a demigod warrior like himself. This was only one occasion of quite a few Space Marine encounters Gaunt and his men had. Whether leading his men against a squad of Chaos Space Marines or taking them on in 1v1 duels, rules, nobody claps the big-ass roided heretics quite like Gaunt's ghosts do. Now that goes over most of the main clear-cut examples, but the humiliation isn't over. I want to do some quick honorable mentions before we go into some of the more niche one-off examples of Guardsmen getting the upper hand over the Astartes. Firstly, some Inquisitors have handedly slain Space Marines, like Eisenhorn, but he is pretty damn powerful. John Grammaticus, a perpetual super spy agent, was able to outwit the first captain of the Alpha Legion, planting a movement-based mine on him in order to prevent him from going anywhere. So whilst these are two examples of humans coming out on top over Space Marines, they were done by two very special, very capable dudes. Warsmith Honsu, basically the current main Iron Warriors character, once engaged in a duel with an Imperial officer. Now this should have been pretty straightforward, but Honsu found himself on the back foot and losing to the mortal man. Such was the skill of this officer. So the Warsmith had to make a sacrifice. He baited the officer into cutting off Honsu's arm, which left the officer open for a killing counterstroke, winning Honsu the duel. Now although he won, he had to sacrifice his arm to do so. A pretty humiliating result considering his opponent was a mere unaugmented mortal. Sometimes in battle, people just go turbo mode, and this next example encapsulates that perfectly. The Elysian drop troops have balls of steel.
Yes,
Flying
they do.
around a battlefield with a jetpack is pretty fucking red hot. So for an Elysian lieutenant to do what I'm about to tell you is pretty on brand. An elite Elysian veteran and his men engaged a large force of wordbearers. Now there's only
Behold, on the left, a dude who's about to literally just send you packing. On the right, a guy who cannot believe it's not butter.
only one way this battle can actually go, but this lieutenant doesn't give a shit. He tears into the wordbearers, slaughtering them even as his men die around him. After racking up one of the highest Astarte kill counts out of all the Guardsmen ever, he finally falls in battle. In a similar vein, an Imperial officer manages to rack up an impressive kill count against the wordbearers during a wordbearer book, which makes it even more impressive. This officer would die, but knowing he had taken out multiple bastards with him would have made it a satisfying end. The last key example of a human humiliating a space marine is as hilarious as it is ridiculous. A wordbearer Gal Vorbak chaplain, so like the most elite of the elite, is killed by a savage human tribesman with a wooden spear. Yep, you heard that right. The human got a lucky, or unlucky if you were the wordbearer, thrust, which penetrated the wordbearer's neck perfectly and tore it out to the bone. The wordbearer had clearly underestimated the human and had died because of it. The only consolation was that before he bled out, he was able to pick up the human and tear him apart, but that would have done little to ease the pain of his death, or the even greater pain of being the only space marine to get clapped by an oversized toothpick. 9 out of 10 times when space marines die to guardsmen or normal humans, it's due to their overconfidence. I mean, there was even a fucking scene where a son of Horus Captain allows an Imperial Guard officer to shoot him in the chest because he thinks she's only holding a las pistol, but in reality it was a Volkite pistol, which melted through his armor and burnt out one of his hearts. Like, he legitimately just stood there and let her do it, the fucking retard. I know GW is tempted to do it, but they better not even think about doing the Golden Banana Boys dirty like this.
Please, for the love of God, no. The whole scene where a Custode got killed by a World Eater outside of his armor.
Especially after the scene where a custodian loses half of his brain matter and is able to walk it off. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then Patreon is the place to be, where we have not only a bunch of live action nude cosplay photos, but also a boatload of Battle Maze 40 million hentai and some awesome high-res Warhammer 40k fan arts. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Now, I kind of got that backwards. I had thought 100% that it was going to be that he was going to include like instances where guardsmen saved space marines, and there's been a fair amount of those examples as well. There's a fair amount of those as well. My favorite, of course, being Andre saving Grimaldus and his Squad Grimaldus from the Hell's Reach crusade during the Siege of Hell's Reach. Guys, I have been eating nothing but terrible food. Like, my cat is freaking out. I've been eating nothing but terrible food for the past couple of days, so I am not exactly in the best way right now. But when we get to the new house, I'm hoping to be able to sit down and actually cook something for myself, because TV dinners are not something that I'm a fan of. I hate them, but they're kind of a necessity right now. But that's all going away in the future. I don't know why I went off on that tangent. I'm an idiot. You guys know this. More pugs. I'm gonna head out. I hope you guys have a lot of fun. I hope you guys have a great week, and I'll catch you guys next time.